Yeah, we're so glad you're here. Oh, we're so glad to be together in unity. We're so glad. How many know what we've been talking about? The 4 agreements. We're on number 3. That's right, number 3 today. And so Reverend Karen Patrick is going to come at this time, and she's going to share with us, this beautiful agreement. How many are making these agreements with yourself? And you're practicing them, and you're making them part of your life. That's what makes the change, right? Karen, we love you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
I love being here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow, I love the 4 agreements. I think they're very rich and deep, and every time I've read them, it's like, oh, I didn't know that. So let's get through it. If this is your first time, or if you haven't been a part of the book series that we've been doing for a couple of weeks now, I just want to talk a little bit about them in general. And a surgeon, Don Miguel Ruiz, wrote the book, The 4 Agreements. And he was going back to his own ancestry and looking at what he knew about Toltec wisdom and how he could bring that forward and how he could bring that forward into today's world so we would have some way to use a spiritual practice in our everyday lives. Isn't that what it's about? Changing every single day. So in the beginning of the book, he talks about the Toltec wisdom being a way to wake up from the dream. Isn't that amazing? Because we talk about that all the time in unity. I love truth. Truth always sounds, my friend Sharon always says, truth always sounds the same, because if it didn't, it's probably a lie. So here we go. It is the truth. It's the truth that we have what we know as in unity as a relative realm, absolute realm. What we think of is a conditioned mind, and how we can liberate and break through that conditioned mind. In this book, it talks about waking up from the dream. They use the word domestication. That we have been domesticated by our rules, what looks good on us, what we're supposed to wear. We have been domesticated. We've been domesticated in how we're supposed to be in the world. And a lot of social norms help society, but sometimes they really take us into bondage, don't they? Sometimes we're so much into the adherence of the social norm that we forget to turn within. We forget to turn into our true nature. So the 4 agreements, very simply, let me just, and that what we need to do is break through, wake up from the dream, our domesticated thoughts, and rewild ourselves. I know there's some people in this audience that like that. So we need to just rewild ourselves. Rewilding really refers back, it's also a landscaping term, that we need to have something that's just not cultivated in front of us. So we also need to have a place for the pollinators and all those things that maybe we can't have right beside of us. But it's a way of us to remember who we are. We use that word, our true nature. But see, it's not 2 things. It's not a true nature and a false nature. True nature means alignment. They use the word true, like carpentry. Like carpentry will use when something fits, when something's in alignment. It's true. And that's how we are. We become true as we wake up, rewild our minds, and be able to embrace who we really are. Today, we'll be focusing in on the 3rd agreement, don't make assumptions. But if you haven't heard them all, let me just go through it. So the first one is, be impeccable with your word. Don't gossip. Care about your own speech. Don't take anything personally. Well, that was really hard for me to hear. But what it means is people are projecting from their own dream onto you. It's not about you. Wow, that would change some things. Don't make assumptions. We're going to talk about how we live in a world of assumption. And the fourth one is always do your best. So today, as we focus on that thing called assumption, we're also working into what Unity often talks about as imagination. Imagination is one of the 12 powers. It's a way for us to really break through the old past ways. But sometimes our imagination can get us into a little trouble, can't it? Where we're sitting there admiring and imagining all these things that are going on, and yet they're just creating concepts. We're just creating ideas. We're just creating a world usually based upon our past woundedness. I got an from Leah over here. We were just talking about that. And I'll go into a little story about how we can make assumptions and live our lives that way. But, just to hit Jesus, just to go into the biblical insights, had a lot to say about that too. There was something about do not judge. You heard that one? Yeah? Okay, don't judge. Why? Because it's like we don't have the measurement, for one thing. We can't see that vast. Why would we judge? Because it's just going to come back to us based upon our own judgment. I used to teach meditation in many different ways, and one of the places that I always loved to go to was I was invited as a guest speaker to Hanover College. It's a little college south of Indianapolis where we lived. And they had a group where they were looking at spirituality in the ways of in practice. It was a summer class. And I always opened that class with a sentence. Define how you say how you define God. Say, how do you define God? There was maybe a circle of 15 people and different majors. Some of them were going into vet school. Some of them were doing different things. But they all had this very clear concept of what God is. And as we went around the room, they became very surprised that everybody had a different idea about God. Even people, and one woman would say, but we go to the same church. That's not what they say. So it's like that. How do we define God? Often it is based upon the assumption of what we were taught. Or also, we assume that what we were taught was completely wrong. So both ways we're able to throw that baby out with the bathwater, right? So we can base our assumptions of God in lots of ways. We like the three faces of God. It was brought to us by Integral Christianity, Paul Smith, who teaches with Ken Wilber, the American philosopher, in that way that God is principle. And Unity likes that one. We are principle. We create with our lives. That's the third principle. We create our world with our thinking. Yeah. And the second principle, one of the faces of God that Unity sometimes it's tried to get away from just because of this woundedness, is that there's a personal relationship with God. And that can really shift for people. It brings up that sense of woundedness of what we were taught in a different time or what we accepted. Our wounds are really just thoughts. Really, honestly, they're thoughts of what we accepted for our own survival. And now we can change. And that is also the power of imagination. We can change, and that is a wonderful thing. You know, many of you know that I spent my previous career, it always feels like a past life, I've spent a previous career being a therapist, and I worked with marriage couples many times. And you want to have an assumption. What is marriage? What does marriage mean to you? Oh my goodness, we could go right through here and come up with every single person is going to have a really different definition. But it doesn't feel that way sometimes. Sometimes we it's hidden. It's not quite conscious. I worked with a couple who, after same-sex marriage was allowed in many areas, and the couple came in and said that they wanted to do some prenuptial work on this. One person, Sarah, was saying, you know, it's finally an outward manifestation of something that we've held so dear our entire life. Emma said, you know, we've been together forever, so I don't know what a piece of paper is. Well, maybe it's a tax write-off, I don't know. So you can hear how one would say, oh, you're not hearing me, you must not love me if you think I'm a tax write-off. And that's what's not said. If you are just entering a relationship, or if you've been in one for, well, honey, we're in 32 years now, go and just define, and this is what I always gave as homework, write down what you believe about marriage, or even a committed relationship. And every single word in that definition, unpack it. Somebody I can depend on. Well, what's that mean? Does that mean, for some people, that might mean they're going to go to the grocery store for me. Another person means, well, they'll be at the end of the trailhead when I'm there. You know? So unpack those assumptions in every single word. A committed relationship. Well, what does that mean? It means you're not going to go off to your mom and you're going to stay here with me and talk to me on Saturdays? No, okay, let's talk about that. So unpack those words, a committed relationship, a marriage relationship, and you'll find how many assumptions are there. So can we really get past our assumptions? Can we? And if we do, we end up with a shared vision. And what a wonderful world that would be, right? What a wonderful world that would be for individuals, families, and for all of us, if we could have a shared vision. To me, that's oftentimes what Jesus would turn to and say, the kingdom of heaven is already here. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. And all we really have to do is drop to our hearts and listen from that place to another person, and we all get there together. Like Ram Dass says, walking each other home. Some of the antidotes to making assumptions is clear communication. Say what you mean. Ask for what you want. Don't assume somebody else is going to know that. Compassion. Oh, have compassion. Have compassion for ourselves. Our compassion for ourselves is so important. Because as we have compassion for ourselves, we project that out into the world, and isn't that wonderful? The past is not always a predictor of the future. You can look at that past with mindfulness and look at that once again and know that each person is evolving. And we become open to the endless possibilities and the ways that we can change. And here's a big one, is take some personal responsibility and open your, some personal responsibility and open to new ideas. Be curious about what another person is saying. And what does that do? That means we're not always right. That's a hard one for me. I like being right. I'm going to tell you a time, a little bit lighter note here. I'll tell you about Mark, my husband, and I. We walk our big old buddy, and we walk him every day. And one of the places we go is, I live outside of Asheville, and so one of the places we go is the Biltmore. And the Biltmore has this beautiful river trail. And so the river is on one side, and then a field is on the other side, oftentimes with sunflowers. This year it's corn. But at the edge of that field, they put up a scarecrow in the image of a coyote. So it's kind of big. I mean, if there's a critter around and it was afraid of coyotes, they would see that and they would really think about it. I passed it 2 or 3 times and I went, wait, no, that's a scarecrow. So one of my favorite things to do is tease the tourists. I mean, you can always tell the tourists. You know what you can do? Their shoes are clean. Their shoes are clean. They pack clean shoes, okay? But anyway, so this couple was just walking down there, and she was just chatting. And she comes by, and I said, hey, did you see the coyote? See that coyote over there? She goes, oh, I see it, yes. Oh, that's a big coyote. And I'm going, you know what? It's not real. She says, no, I think that's real. It's a big coyote. And I'm going, no, see how still it is? It's not moving. Well, you know they do that. Well, you know, it's always in the same place. Yeah, they'll come back to the same place. I said, you know, I'm a local. We all know that that's a scarecrow. No, I don't think so. I said, okay, have a good day, huh? You know, sometimes we just aren't right. Watch our assumptions. How do we make these assumptions? Well, Myrtle had a lot to say. Myrtle Fillmore, one of the co-founders of Unity, had a great deal to say about this. And she talked about assumptions as a way of saying that it was a mistake. And a mistake is all it is. Some people relate the word sin with mistake. Okay, it's a mistake, and that's all it is. How do we go past that? Well, we're wired to make assumptions. Neuroscience says we're wired to make assumptions. But in our spiritual practice, when we meditate every day, and we meditate and pray, do you pray for yourself? I forget to do that many times. I don't pray for myself. I'm usually praying for everybody else, doing my spiritual practice, working on energy healing. Are we going to pray for ourselves? So let's go forward today. Today, we can be aware of our tendencies for assumptions. And we have the power to change that. So we'll go forward today, aware of our assumptions and the power for clear communication, breaking it up, so that we can allow our wilding to emerge and liberate from the conditioned mind that's holding us in a bondage that we don't have to be in. So today, we can change. And that's the power of imagination in a good way. Thank you. And drop to your hearts. Take some deep breaths from the oneness that you already are. And just experience and feel that which you know is there for you at all times, the oneness of all of life. in that oneness. There's a deep clarity. Just take that deep breath and allow yourself to feel the clarity of your true nature. The love, the joy. That sense of fullness. And in that, this love, allow yourself to just be there and feel the joy and the love deep within your heart, knowing that this is the clarity, this is the liberation, this is who you truly are. As you take a few deep breaths, allow yourself to feel whatever quality is arising for you, the fullness and the prosperity of it all, and the interconnectedness with everyone, all beings, all sentient life, all life breathes. And take a moment to just do a deep breath and know that you are breathing in the freshness of the moment and breathing out what the trees, the plants, and all of life may need as you breathe in what they have given to you and experience the joy of interconnection. And that we're not separate. We're not separate from each other, from the oneness we are. And we are whole already. Take a moment to just wiggle your toes and open your eyes and have that sense of knowing out into the world. And we are whole. Thank you.